I'm so excited to talk to our guest today on Driving with Dave. We have booker of one of the, I would say, more notorious comedy clubs in the country. The lives of comedians are in her hands. It's Lucy Sinsheimer.
Sinsheimer. Yeah,
there we go.
H is silent. It's confusing.
So you're on the other side of the brick wall, and that's what's so interesting to me in talking to you. You are in a position that I would not say is an enviable position. Either people love you or hate you because you get to decide who gets on the stage. How's that?
You know, I think when I was young, I've been doing it for like 11 years now, and I was like 20 when I started, so that aspect was super overwhelming when you're young, but when you get older, you're just like...
How do you get started booking comedy?
Well, I loved comedy, but I didn't want to do it, right? So there's no like book on what you do when you love comedy, but you don't want to be on stage. So I figured the thing to do is find the club in my hometown. And like a comic, email them and call them until they couldn't ignore me anymore, and set up a meeting with the owner of that club, which was the Comedy Zone in Charlotte, and was just like, I think I was 19 at the time, and I was like, can I just come work here over the summer? Like, I want to do something. And they were like, well, why don't you be our intern? Like, interns were... You didn't have to pay interns back then. I think you have to pay them now.
Do you? I don't know.
I think there's like a law now. But anyway, so I interned for them for a summer, and I would work at the box office at night. And basically I was just like, it sounds like I'm old, I'm not, but they were kind of stuck in a different time period. I would fax things for them, fax contracts, and keep them organized during the day. And then at night I'd help seat the room and sell tickets. But that summer, all the club owners from the South, like the Punchline Comedy Club in Atlanta, the Zanies in Nashville, the Stardom in Birmingham, and then the Comedy Zone, they all met up in Charlotte. And they were all doing what's called a routing call, where they call different agents and try to route comics through all of their clubs. And
so for those that don't, because my audience isn't always necessarily comedy focused, so it'd behoove a comic if they live in LA to go do Zanies Nashville, maybe Zanies Chicago, scoop around Milwaukee, and kind of like do a couple in a row versus flying in and out every weekend.
Exactly. And some comics aren't going to be able to sell a whole weekend at different clubs, so it makes sense to do like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you know, Nashville, Huntsville, Birmingham, wherever. So we're on these routing calls, and the agents are pitching younger comics, and the club owners don't really know these younger comics, and I'm just kind of throwing out my opinions. And that caught the attention of the club owners in Nashville. And I still had like a semester left in school, so they were like, whenever you're finished, you have a job here. Which was awesome. I'm so lucky for that. And then I got here, and they didn't quite know exactly what the job was, so I was doing like social media for them, and then booking showcases.
It sounds like you kind of created a job.
Yeah, and then slowly that turned into like booking all the openers, and then that turned into booking the off nights, and then that slowly turned into weekends, and now I think I have 5 clubs total.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
right. You've got Huntsville, Zanies here, a second club here opening.
Yes, opening in April. The lab at Zanies, and Chicago and Rosemont.
Oh, you're booking Chicago in Rosemont?
Yeah, I've been doing that for about 2 years, I think.
Wild. Now this is interesting because I talk to the audience a lot about making your dreams come true, and what are your dreams, and so here you are pretty much creating a job by looking for opportunities. And what's so interesting is the number one reason why a lot of comedy clubs fail over time is because they stop putting talent on stage that audiences want to see. So it's almost like you're the young hot girl who knows what the audience wants because you're a fan of it.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, my boss really has the best relationships in the world with the older comics, and he kind of taught me how to create the best relationships in the world with the up-and-coming comics, and I think together, like, that's how we've built such an awesome club.
You know, and you just posted about Shane Gillis, who of course hosted SNL and was fired from SNL, and I think the whole comedy world knows what's to come before Hollywood does.
Totally.
So like you can watch someone kill on stage and be like, oh, this guy's got it. He's going to be the next guy. How much of your booking is knowing the audience is gonna love what they're gonna see on stage versus the business side, which is, well, this guy sells tickets right now.
Yeah, you kind of have to have a really healthy mix. I mean, I remember the first time I booked Tim Dillon, or the first time I booked Jessica Kirson, or even Shane, like, they were on off nights and they sold maybe 80 to 100 tickets, but you just knew that there was something there, so you wanted to keep growing it. So you started an off night, and then you go into like 2 late shows on a weekend, and then you grow into 5 shows, and then you grow into theaters, and it's important to have a good balance. You know what I mean? Like,
now you're the ones who you're the one who writes the checks, so it must be crazy to see what it's like as a fan for a comedian when they can sell out a weekend.
Oh yeah.
Add the third date. I mean, because there's clubs where, I mean, and I'll use a different place like the Wilbur, which is more of a theater in Boston, but like there are comics making 6 figures that weekend.
Oh yeah.
Because they can sell tickets, and unlike a rock band, there's just less mouths to feed. It's like you can get up on stage and not have to bring a drum kit, and you can make some serious money there, which it's pretty wild to see. So,
it's so interesting to look at somebody's like first check they ever got versus like the last time they played a club before entering a theater, and you're like, whoa, that growth is crazy. Or like Dusty Slay, who's a local guy, he's been doing his Dusty Slay Grand Ole Comedy Show at the club for probably 8 years now. I think we started that show about 8 years ago. We used to go on the radio together and beg people to come to that show.
Yeah, no,
we used to send me and him together used to send cold emails to the Tennessean, the Nashville Scene, like all these great publications, but unfortunately at the time just they didn't know who he was. To now, you know, cut to his Netflix special coming out. That show sells out the second we put it on sale, and
that's wild that
he's getting all this awesome press. It's really cool.
Yeah, that must be really fulfilling to know somebody when they're not selling tickets, and then you get to see sort of what they come into, because I mean, like, we all go from paying to do stand-up to making a lot of money to do stand-up. And like most creative endeavors, I've always said you're kind of like the intern until you're the CEO. There isn't much middle ground there. So like, how, I'm sure I'm gonna have a lot of comics that want to know, like, how do you sift between, because there are so many comics that want to get on your stage, even in a smaller market. How do you sift between people that are ready versus who's not, and who's got hope for, like what's your mindset like?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I think you have to slowly start building some sort of a following before you can headline. With locals, you know, it kind of starts from the beginning, or like not even just locals, local, regional, whatever. I always say the best thing to do if I haven't seen you is come do New Material Monday, which is the show we have every Monday. And if I see you have a great set, you'll come back and start doing it more and more. And then as you start doing that more and more, you become a host. And as you start host, it's like kind of like that feeds into it. Like Amber Autry is a great example of it. I think she has just grown so much, and she used to be in Chicago, and I stole her from Chicago, and I just saw something there, right? But just seeing something doesn't translate into tickets. So she just started performing at the club all the time on New Material Monday, and that transitioned into her hosting, which transitioned into her featuring, and now she's starting to headline, and I've never seen a human being hustle more to get people in the room. I mean, she's undeniable on every show she's on in Nashville, and then she promotes her shows, and now I think we have her coming in April, and she's over 100 tickets. It's like,
amazing. You
just have to like keep, I know it's so cliche, but it's like, it is a grind. Yeah. And you have to keep going, and you have, especially now too, you have to keep growing your social following. I mean, that is important in getting booked, because that, I can see you have an audience.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, I always said this in Los Angeles, like pretty much everyone who's been doing comedy long enough in LA, it's like you're gonna get laughs.
Yeah.
But are you gonna sell tickets to my show?
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, it's like you either sell out because you're famous, or you sell tickets because it's your first time ever doing stand-up.
Yeah.
And people are excited to see you, and then you wear your friends out, and then it's about like, okay, I can no longer rely on my friends. I need to find audience that wants to see me, because what you learn is that your friends and family aren't your fans.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be that pumped. But what I loved was I actually went to, I think it's the only show I've ever taken my wife to. Sunday night, a couple of weeks ago, I went when Dave Neal, I think I'm pronouncing that right.
Neal.
So if you pronounce his last name wrong, it sounds just like mine. So we were both on stage at Laugh Factory. I didn't realize we were going back to back once in LA. And again, this is years ago. And it was we had this kind of fun moment. Like, I was like, oh, you're like the Irish version of me.
Yeah.
Well, he has since blown up on his socials. And I was like, oh, you got to see him. My wife's like, oh, I've seen him all over TikTok. And sure enough, he's selling out theaters at all times of the day across the world. And this is a guy that was like, just battling for open mic stage time in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So it's really great when you get the opportunity, and when that opportunity meets what the internet can do, which is just like pour gasoline on your following.
Yeah, and I think people want to, it's easy to complain about it, right? Because it's not like it's a fun thing to get up and edit clips all the time and to be looking for content. But at the same time, it's like, if you compare this to 30 years ago or 20 years ago when you had to be on television to get spots, it's like at least that third party validation is taken out.
Yeah.
It's
different now.
It's like, different now. You don't need the industry to be fully behind you to make it.
Yeah.
You just need to make your own audience, find your own audience. And obviously that's not as easy as XYZ. There's no perfect formula for it, but we know the formula is doing something. And I think a lot of people kind of get lost and don't really know. And I think some people maybe try to figure it out too soon. And it's just kind of like a weird initiation where, guys like Dusty Slay, I mean, he's been doing it for a super long time. And, you can't just like, you can stumble upon a laugh, but you can't stumble upon an act. Yeah. Comedy is also, you have to be patient. Like, I know that's so frustrating to hear, but even Matt Rife, which everybody wants to have an opinion, Matt Rife's been doing comedy for 12 years. He didn't wake up, start posting on TikTok and get famous.
Right.
Like, 3-4 years ago, he was playing my room in Huntsville and we were papering the whole room. Like, you have to work hard.
Yeah. And it's changed. I mean, I look at guys like Louis C.K. who they talk about their glory days in New York City where they'd end the night with a pocket full of cash because you get to do all these spots and this and that. And you could look, there's different ways you could look at it, right? You could say, well, that like spot pay doesn't exist in the bigger cities like it used to. Pay's actually gone away. But there's people making $30,000 a month on Patreon. Right. So like technology does make it easier to make money when the time's right. Like, and I did probably 8 years of stand-up before some of my stuff started taking off.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would exchange it. I know people, and I don't want to say their names, but I know people that broke early in comedy, and I got to watch them almost be disgruntled by their fan base.
Sure.
When I was doing Uber and being like, oh my gosh, they're actually dodging saying hi to their fans because it's like a burden to them, when I would kill for those fans. So like I see like my audience that I found, and I am so protective of them.
Oh
because,
yeah, it's a weird thing to see somebody hate their fans. I've seen that before.
They're like,
too.
they literally, I can't say who this is, but they literally ordered food in the green room so that they could wait for the fans to leave. And I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
I have my last show before like our baby arrives. My last like traveling show. I'm going to Phoenix to do their new improv in March. But I have people flying in for that because they're like, all right, they live in Canada. They want to come in when the weather's like nicer. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to spend all night with these people.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference, by the way, as a booker. Like, you can tell the fans remember when you go and shake their hands and make a connection with them. Like, I always try to tell young comics when they're starting to headline, like, go out and take the pictures, like,
absolutely,
shake the hands, like they will remember and they will buy a ticket next time you come to their city.
Yeah. So again, I want to get back to you being on the inside of the wall. I always talk about brick walls. They're not meant to keep people out. They're meant to show you how bad you want something. Yeah. But it's a big brick wall. It's the comedy club in Nashville. It's like I said before, it's like people are riding on. Oops, sorry. That's the wrong way. Let's get the booker killed.
Listen, I've done that before with have comics in my car.
Sorry about that. I'm new to town. Actually, what the funny part is, when I met you, this is the same reason why it took me a long time to get laid, is the same reason why sometimes I don't book shows, is because I'm not good at the close.
Sure.
If someone's like doesn't respond to an email, I'm like, all right, well, fuck that person for life. Like, whatever.
Yeah, a lot of comics are like that.
And
there's either that way or the complete opposite way, where it's either like you're afraid because you don't get the first email back, or you email me every day.
And I'm not, and it's not like an ego thing. It's more, it's actually probably more like an insecurity thing, where like, I'm just like, I don't want to bother you. You'll find me. I'll be busking on the street, whatever.
Sure.
I'll go. It's like literally, that's why I probably moved out of LA. Well, like to have a kid and buy an affordable home, but also to be like, I'll just do it on my own. I don't care. I've already got my own form of success. It's whatever. But I was only in town for like 2 days when I was here in May, and I was like, I'm just gonna I probably messaged you 2 or 3 times, and you finally responded, and I had no idea who you were. I did the Monday show and New Material Monday, and then I came into the green room and just started like bullshitting with you, and didn't know you were the booker. And I was like,
Wait, was this this wasn't the other day though?
No, this was May. No.
No, you knew me by then.
Yeah, okay. No. So this was in May, and then probably, I'm talking mad shit. Just it was that post-set adrenaline. I come off the stage, and I'm like, and then like probably like, I don't know, a little while into the convo, you mentioned like, I'm the person who books the room, and I was like, and then like the needy. I don't know if my mood changed, but then it's like, okay, Dave, straighten up, quit talking shit. And I'm like, well, maybe it's good that you met me, but without me trying to kiss your ass or whatever.
Totally.
But that's probably, that's probably like weird to be the one in the room where, God forbid, you have like, I don't know, some meet and greet. Everyone's, eyeballs are on you. Like, can you feel that energy?
Yeah, I can definitely feel that. I think what separates me from other bookers is how approachable I am. I'm a friendly person. I think sometimes people think I'm cold at first because I'm, not walking around the club with a huge smile on my face 24/7 because I'm there 24/7. Right. So it's not like,
yeah, you're at work.
I'm at work. It's my job. But like for the most part, I'm pretty friendly. I can definitely feel when somebody's only treating me a certain way because they want something versus like they just like me and I'm a good hang and we're just getting to know each other, if that makes sense.
Sure.
But I also understand like everybody has like a dream, right? Everybody's there because they have a dream to do comedy.
And you get 4 spots, 5, 6, depending on the show.
Yeah.
You get a handful of spots.
Mm-hmm. I don't have a lot of spots, and that's what's so exciting about this new room we're opening, is it will open up many more spots for people.
Yeah.
And I think that will like kind of ease everybody's, because I'm sure people walk around and go, well, she uses the same XYZ too many times, and it's like,
oh, I'm sure.
Those are the people that are doing the best. So
yeah, and it's hard to have empathy for. It's hard for the comedian to have empathy for the booker because they see you as a sort of vehicle to what they need in life.
Totally.
When I'm like, I've looked at it now as being like, oh my gosh, I would not want to be in the position where people either love you or hate you until you're their biggest enemy until you respond in the email, and then you're like, oh my gosh, Lucy's great, we love her.
I think also people forget my whole job isn't just giving people spots. Like I also am booking headliners at 5 different clubs. I'm advancing the dates for all the different artists, which is like their lodging, their travel, all of that. On top of like little things like making sure, I have a staff member here ready for the unload of the merch, or there's a lot more going on than just booking New Material Monday or booking the host for the weekend or booking the feature for the weekend. Like, and those things are very important to me.
Yeah.
They're extremely important to me, but I also have a lot of other things I have to do on top of that.
It's so funny to think about because, the only thing in my world is like, is she going to respond to my fucking email?
Right.
Which, by the way, that Monday show, which was on Memorial Day, I remember because in LA, that show gets canceled. Oh, you lost your water? It might have gone. It's gone. In LA, that show gets canceled because if anything happens in LA, there's not enough people to show up. And it wasn't a sellout, but it was probably a huge audience. Mm-hmm. And I was only there to do Caitlin Bristow's podcast. I had no intention of moving here. Yeah. And then once we started, once we got pregnant, I was like, wow, Nashville was like a cool vibe.
Yeah.
And there was something that happened that few days I was here that I think opened my mind to maybe like a life outside of LA. And I miss it, but I haven't regretted it. It's just different. And I really look at that week, that 3 days that I was here at, and again, it was, I moved in a snowstorm. I moved in the worst weather possible. So
that was really bad.
I mean, I literally moved
I feel so bad for you.
There was ice getting up the hill, and my truck that I was driving skid off the hill and backed into someone's mailbox.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah, I literally started my life
I just kept Ubering that weekend. Sorry, I know this has nothing to do, but do you ever like Uber during something like that, and you're like, why am I trusting this random person driving me? But I wouldn't trust.
As a former Uber driver, as a comedian, I was sleep deprived every hour I drove. It's the most dangerous thing in the world. But hey, you got to do what you got to do. I
won't do it myself.
Now, I want to know, and you can totally...
Oh wait, can I say one thing?
Please.
The one thing I think is really special about Nashville, and there will be some comedians that listen to it and disagree, and that's totally fine. Everybody is, they have their own opinion. Everybody has their own opinion. But the comedians are very supportive of each other compared to most scenes. Yes, there are outliers, totally, that are angry or think the scene isn't cohesive, but like last week at New Material Monday, there were at least 30 to 40 comics just sitting upstairs supporting their friends.
So how does that work? Is it an open
a lot of them were probably, I'll explain in a second, we're probably there because they want to show face time, because I do think it's important to show face. But I could hear them, clapping and laughing and supporting the other comics, and I don't feel like that happens a lot in other comedy scenes.
Yeah.
The comedy scene I started in Charlotte, everybody was angry at each other all the time. If anybody got a spot, another comic or 10 other comics would be like, why wasn't that for me? And whereas I feel here, when somebody hosts for the first time on a weekend or even an off night, there's at least 10 to 15 comics coming to support them.
Oh, funny. I think in this market too, it's like there's one main club. So for me, I like it because in LA, it's always like, should I go to Haha? Or should I go? There's like so many different options to go to and invest your time in, and it's very clear here. Like go to support your friends, go to show face, but also go to watch professionals do it.
Yeah,
that's so important to watch people that know how to handle the room do it when it's a good room and a bad room, and how to
agreed. And go see different kinds of comics. Different styles of comics, every kind of comic you can see, go see, because everybody's a little bit different. But the way that New Material Monday works, it's not an open mic. It's all pre-booked. It's all based on submissions, videos. I'll say like word of mouth is the best way. If a comic I really trust is telling me, hey, so-and-so's been crushing it in the scene, like you should give him 5 minutes on New Material. I think you'd like him. That goes a long way for me.
And then how much of that is obviously the headliners that are in town, like, or the ones that live here, like a Nate Bargatze, or like, do they just have carte blanche to pop in?
Yeah. I mean, if Nate's texting me, I don't care if it's 5 minutes before the show starts or 5 minutes before the show's supposed to end. Like, he's definitely getting a spot. Same goes for Steve Byrne, Theo Vaughn, Kathleen Madigan, anybody who lives in town like that at that level.
Oh, do they all live here?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Then, like, you're going to get a spot.
I mean, as a comedian, if you're a traveling comic, how do you not live in Nashville? There's no state income tax.
No state income tax. There's
super convenient.
I mean, you just moved to Mount Juliet. You can get a bang for your buck there like you're not going to get in most major cities.
I know. I saw Theo's house because I just Googled it, and it showed up, and it was like, former state basketball coach's mansion.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that would have been nothing in Los Angeles, and here you can get a palatial estate. Now, you might not want to talk about this, so just let me know, but you've got your love life. You're so connected to the comedy world. Tell me, you fell in love with a comedian.
I did the exact same thing everybody warned me not to do.
Yeah. Well, that's the key, right? You warn people not to, so that when they do, it's actually like meaningful.
Yeah.
They warn you not to bang the comics, not to marry. If you marry them, you marry them.
Yeah, exactly. And, we kept it very secret for a while.
Sure.
It was like a little secret romance. We were both nervous that people were going to have some sort of reaction, be it like the owners of Zanies, who are my bosses, obviously, or the other comics, or being upset, saying, you know, he only gets stage time because of that. So we kept it quiet for a couple months, and I remember I sat my bosses down, like something really serious had happened, and I was like, well, I just want to like talk to you guys. You know, me and Aaron have been seeing each other, but you know, we'll stop if it's going to interfere with my job, because that's the number one most important
would
thing.
Would you really have though?
Probably not, but they were like, yeah, we love Aaron. And every other comic was like, yeah, we also love Aaron. Like, also Aaron's very funny, so nobody was like, he's only getting spots because of this.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
He's undeniably funny, so I think all of the fear that we had just kind of dissipated quick once we made the big reveal or whatever. Everybody was kind of like, yeah, that makes sense.
It's not as sexy if everyone knows. You're hiding behind...
It was fun to keep it a secret.
I'm glad
we did it all the way we did it.
Every gay friend of mine that's like, man, they legalized marriage. What blowjobs just aren't the same. And I'm like, I get it, man.
It's so funny.
So how long ago was that? How long you guys been together?
Oh, God. Forever. It's 2024 now.
Tell me about his success and how you see it as a wife.
Yeah.
And how you see, like, how you root him on, because obviously it's one thing to be funny, it's another thing to like really start to book gigs, you know, road gigs, and what's that like?
I just have such an understanding for it. I think that's a relief for him. Even though obviously success comes with being away more, right? Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people that aren't in the business, that are with comedians, and you can probably speak to this as you're married, it's hard. I mean, like, the more success you get, the more you're gone. So he's gone every weekend now, but I'm thrilled for him, like, because I can see how he went from being like a one-nighter act to like a fully papered weekend act to like what papered means when you give away tickets. Sorry, I keep talking like people know all the terminology. To like to now like somebody who's like actually starting to grow a fan base and sell his own tickets, and it's like it's so awesome. And I see how much like the podcast has helped, and like we're obviously so grateful for Nate for him being a part of that. And
Nate Bargassi, also SNL host and touring headliner for those that
selling out arenas.
Show.
But yeah, no, it's been awesome, and it benefits me too, because I see when he goes to a club that might, and I'll never name names on a podcast, but that might not necessarily take care of comics the way that we do, and I'll take note of like all the different things that like went wrong and go, okay, well, we'll make sure that this never happens at our club.
By the way, you guys, your green room is one of the best.
Thank you.
I'm sure you get that compliment a lot, and you almost don't know till you've traveled around how, comedians are, they're just, it's a product of supply and demand. Mm-hmm. So in some of these major markets, it's like, look, I don't, I've done, when it started in New York City, some of the comedy clubs, you don't even want to sit down in the green room because there's roaches and mice and stuff running around.
Or there's not a green room.
Yeah, you're literally, and by green room, like the Greenwich Village Comedy Club, no offense to it, but you're literally sitting on, on the soda crates that, you just like, there's no room in some of those clubs, but also like, there's just a lot of comics running through, so it's not of value. But when you get to your spot, you've got fully stocked, fully stocked like beer, all the soft drinks and candies and things like that. And it goes a long way because as a comic, you want to feel comfortable when you're on stage and you're fighting against all of the nerves and anxiety. So it's nice to have a little living room that's literally a step away.
And as a comic, you're normally on the road so much. Like, the best thing that we can do is make you feel as at home as possible and have as many comforting things in the green room as possible. Like, I just don't see like why every other club wouldn't want to do that.
And then when you're the headliner, you're stealing bags of potato chips to go back to the hotel room, and you gotta turn a blind eye to the why is the jar of M&Ms missing?
Exactly.
Now, what's interesting when you say about him having to sort of go away more is I see it this way, like we're having a baby in under 2 months, and there'll be times when I'm away, but I'm also going to be like a stay-at-home dad too.
Yeah.
So it's like you go away to build the equity so that you can make decisions when you want to go away.
Totally.
There's no boss telling you to go away. It's like, I need to go do this, make this money so that Monday through Thursday I'm home. And then eventually you're just, you get to the point where, all right, these gigs are good. The family can tour with me and, whatever. Have you considered that like family life where maybe you're on the road with him and how does that look like?
I mean, I think that's exactly what we want to build towards, I mean, and exactly what you said, like, as much as it will be difficult that he will be on the road sometimes, and I'll probably join him every once in a while, is that he will be home Monday through Thursday. So it's like you can kind of alternate it.
It's different. Yeah, it's just different. Yeah.
But it's certainly like possible. There was definitely a long time where I was like, how does anybody do that? And then I think Dusty and his wife having kids made me feel like, oh, they do it pretty good.
It's all about security. And when we got married, I think, and also when like my YouTube and stuff started to take off, I think my wife felt more security that there was a reason to it. You know, when you're just running to an open mic and it's a lottery, it kind of feels like pointless sometimes.
Sure.
And it's not, but it just feels that way. Like, what's the tangible thing I can show?
Mm-hmm.
And now, actually, it's worked out really well since my wife, because she didn't get maternity leave because she was a fit model. Mm-hmm. So her job's literally to put on fashion designers' clothes, see what fits right. And as soon as she was an inch too big, she basically lost all of her clients.
Wow.
Which is just, how it works.
Yeah.
So she was home early in the pregnancy, and it made things a lot easier because it wasn't now she gets home at 4 and then I'm leaving at 6,
mm-hmm.
and we would just cross paths. And now we can kind of be more on the same schedule. So when I do have to go do a gig or, even if it's in town or whatever, she kind of knows, all right, I'm not here for these hours.
Yeah.
But it's a hell of a grind to get to that point. And it looks like you guys are in that zone where both of your careers are really defined.
Yeah, it's and I have to be better about going, okay, I don't need to be at every single show for the entire show. I'm 31 now, like it's time to, obviously during new material night I want to always be there and pop in and watch people, and every weekend pop in and see a show or two, but I'm getting to the point in my life where it's like, okay, time to take a step back and not be at Zanies.
Seriously.
24/7.
I mean, what a workload, though. Seriously. Do you live close by?
I live in Donaldson right now, but we're moving out right out by you.
Yeah.
In May.
How exciting. We'll have to, I still got to buy a grill, but I plan on I want to do a comedy, so when I know enough people, I want to do a comedy barbecue or something. Now, what about? I talked to you about this before. What about you guys doing like a YouTube show or something? Let's get you on
I'm
that.
open to it.
You're so good at talking.
It
You should
depends on
absolutely be doing it.
him. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's it's interesting is my husband's very clean.
Oh yeah. What do you mean, like
naturally, like what his comedy, but also off stage too. I mean, Nate Land is, and I find it a little difficult to keep it together
you're the dirty
and not
one.
swear and stuff. So I'd probably have to like adjust some of that. But
I've had to do that
at some point.
I had to learn that on YouTube. I had to learn that my channel was very R-rated.
Yeah.
And it wasn't successful.
Yeah.
And then I moved because it's not necessarily someone, the Wizard of Oz on YouTube saying, you're promoted, I'm going to promote you, I'm not going to promote you. But what I had to learn was like, you got to be clean the first 5 minutes of your video because they literally are scanning and saying, if you say the F word, we're not going to put an ad on it.
Yeah.
So as soon as I learned that it's just a game of, playing that game, I had to, and I'm sure in the stand-up world, if you do naturally work clean, it does open up doors.
Oh, 100%.
But I always tell people, like, there's nothing better than a dirty story. So, like, if you don't work clean, don't force it. But
don't force it. I always say don't force it, but it's a good skill to have in your back pocket, right?
Yeah.
So don't force yourself to make your act totally clean if that's not you. But if you can do 10 to 15 minutes clean, have that in your back pocket.
Are there more clean shows here? Is this a Bible Belt thing? Because there's all these, like, I literally did one last night, and I'm like, I can do clean, but I didn't know,
There's definitely more clean comics here than probably any other city, and I think a lot of that has to do less with it being the Bible Belt and more with, like, the influence of Nate and Dusty and how big they've been able to get while being clean. And they're both also the type of comics, and Aaron, I'd include in this too, that are clean, but you don't realize they're clean because they're just funny.
Yeah.
They're not doing like church material or like corny stuff. They're just naturally, they don't swear or
it
talk
doesn't
about,
feel like it's a forced clean
yeah, so
bit.
I think people have been kind of like inspired by that, but there's definitely lots of dirty comics here too.
It's so funny because I feel like as comedians, when you see like, it's very rare, but when you see a prop comic, you're like, wow, it's like seeing a vestige of the past. But when you see a clean comic, you're like, man, you didn't have to talk about X, Y, and Z. And it's like, you know, there's certain topics that are a little bit more taboo, so they play well at night in the comedy world. But yeah, I mean, for me, I had to, when I started comedy, I had to open clean and for a comic I was on tour with. And I was like, all right, pretty much any family joke can be a clean joke.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you just kind of like learn what...
What's also like, watch how many comics to just swear as a crutch. And I have no problem with swearing in sets. Obviously, I swear all the time. But I do find it frustrating when you can tell somebody's just swearing.
Like as an adjective, like this fucking guy.
Instead of saying like, or like, you're like, oh, they're just saying fuck as filler. Where I feel like if it's part of the punchline, then great. But like, if you just keep saying it, then maybe notice how much you're saying it and cut back a little bit, you know?
Well, there you go. Plenty of advice to be had here, whether you're in the comedy world or not, because I love hearing your story about pursuing something you love. You know, we're too busy like, I have a degree in this, so I need to do that. It's like you loved comedy, and you found a gig that turned into a full job and a lifestyle and a partner that has to deal with a world of make-believe and fun. I mean, that's kind of, you know, pretty cool. Like, did you ever think that this was going to be like your full-time thing?
No.
Yeah. Did you ever think you'd make it to Driving with Dave? I mean, how amazing.
Never.
Well, thanks so much. Let me know when you're moving. I pledge my assistance if you need a unloader or anything. And maybe I can get your husband on the show sometime.
I'm sure he would.
I'm going to work my way through the comedy roster here.
I'm sure he'd do it in a second.
Well, thanks again.
Of course.
All right, that's Lucy, everybody.